Welcome to the EchoCast, episode 85. I am Bon Diesel, and this is a podcast about The Division, The Division 2, its community, news, updates, drama, and whatever else I feel like talking about, even if it has nothing to do with The Division. If you're new, welcome. Thanks for checking this out. If you've been here before, thanks for coming back. Today, we are going to do a state of the game recap and thoughts. Haha. Survival stuff. Call of Duty follow-up. What? Oh, dang it. Was Division 1 as good as we remember? Listener questions and content updates. If you would like to support the podcast and my other content, please check out patreon.com/theechocast. Thank you to our Patreon supporters this month: Hassan, Darren, Tim, Mike, Joe, DJ, Christian, Iceman, and Justin. I am fighting off a cold or flu or something, so if I'll try to cut any coughs. I'll try to not hack, but a hack has got a hack, right? Okay, state of the game recap. Today I'm recording this on Thursday. Yesterday we had no state of the game. They stated there is a patch in the coming week that will take care of some quality of life issues. I believe it has something to do with the dark zone alert in the bottom left of the screen and a couple other things. There should be an episode next week, even though that is what they said last week. Just as like a note on this, and I'm not going to dive into it because I've got plenty of ranting to do here in a moment. Episode 1 and 2 from a game perspective were great. They were really good. Especially episode 2, more namely title update 6, with all of the loot changes and all of that stuff. The actual content was underwhelming, to say it in the nicest way. The expedition kind of sucks. It's not the worst thing that's ever happened. It's fine, but it isn't as good as it should have been. The Pentagon, neat, kind of cool, but still a big letdown, at least in my opinion. Episode 1 set at least an expectation that there would be a new mode and new missions. Even if that mode kind of sucked, it still was a decent amount of content. But then episode 2 was like, hey, here's a new area, and you know what you're going to do in this new area? It's 2 new missions. Albeit, the 2 missions are incredible. I really, really like the missions. I don't want to take anything away from that. But it wasn't enough. I do believe that overall that both patches have been good. Both releases were good. But it was because of all of the under the hood changes. And not because of the content. We need a punch. There needs to be a big uppercut of content. Episode 3 needs to be that uppercut of content, and they need to start teasing it now. I suspect that episode 3 releases in late January, early February. It's almost the middle of November now. If there's going to be anything to do with a hunter in episode 3, tomorrow, drop a 10-second trailer where it starts off with a black screen. The smoke bomb goes off, fills the screen with like the gas mist, and then a hunter appears in it. It drops off, says episode 3 coming early 2020. Boom. You're welcome, Massive and Ubisoft. Hire me tomorrow. I got this for you. I can be your hype man. I know how to get people pumped for this. Or even just, there's going to be some new dialogue from Keener in episode 3, right? Because we're hunting him. So take a 5-second clip of that dialogue, put it into a 10-second trailer, and release it in 2 weeks. And then 2 weeks after, it's not going to take much to get people hyped. And if this third episode is going to be the makeup episode for the first 2, maybe being a little not so great, start hyping it now. You have to get people more interested again. Just my opinion. State of the game next week, hopefully. I'll recap it and hopefully live tweet it. Keep an eye on my Twitter for updates at Bon Diesel. Okay, Division 2 gaming news. Division 2 news. So there really wasn't any in the last week, let's be honest. So instead, I'm gonna rant about something I saw, and I don't know. I've probably ranted about it before, but hear me out. I do want to hear your opinions. My Discord has a whole channel for feedback. When I post this on Twitter, both on the Division 2 Hub and my own account, you're more than welcome to comment on there. In the YouTube comments, you're more than welcome. I want to hear what you have to think, but here's how I saw it. Okay, so there was a quote-unquote confirmation of no survival in Division 2. So on the Friday stream on November 1st, there was a comment from Amper, who's the division community manager who's in North Carolina. He's actually not with Red Storm. I think a lot of people think he's a Red Storm employee. He's not. He works for Massive or Ubisoft. I don't know, but he doesn't work for Red Storm. He just works at a place near them. He kind of offhandedly said that no, not even offhandedly. He just said there's no current plans for survival in Division 2. And it's just like sometimes this community is like a kid who tries to ride a bicycle with no wheels on it and then gets pissed every time it falls over because they thought that there were wheels on it. It just doesn't. So there's one post in particular that was expected, unfortunately, but I've seen a lot of comments, and even in the comments on the chat when this happened, of people pretending like this was them backtracking, and there's never been any confirmation of survival coming back to Division 2, and that's a fact. There's no disputing it. There have been a few situations and interviews and offhanded comments, I believe specifically from Julian Garrity. I think maybe even Terry has said something, but it's only amounted to them basically saying, yeah, we liked survival, we thought that was cool. But at no point have they ever confirmed or denied, well, sort of denied, survival or any other mode coming back. It's underground and survival and last stand, and even people want resistance back, which just blows my mind, but to each their own, different strokes. It's all good. But like anyone who pretends survival was promised or guaranteed or confirmed at any time is being sensational at best, or maybe a little loose with the facts, or at worst is just lying, to get people riled up or because they are ignorant or whatever. So like I get it. I understand people's desire for survival and for underground and last stand and resistance and blah 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 blah. I would like most of those things back as well. But some people's tunnel vision that amounts to like this like survival or bust, that, you know, like I think there's a lot of people right now where if they just added in some janky survival mode to Division 2 today, that it would make a lot of people be like, oh, this game's great. Because other than the fact that it's missing that type of content, which I think is true, you know, the actual game itself is very good. And I'm not saying that means that it's fixed, that we're done, let's pack it up and go home. It obviously needs a lot more stuff, a lot more work. But there seems to be this kind of weird obsession or tunnel vision or whatever you want to call it, with just like every time there's any mention of new stuff coming, it's always survival, you know, underground. And to me, and this is just my opinion, please don't be offended by it, but it's like borderline embarrassing. And I think it's kind of a bad look on the community. I just, what I found is, and let me get this straight. A lot of the people asking for that are some of the really true fans of this game who have stuck with it and enjoy it and want the best for it. I think that's great. What I've also found though is that it's kind of similar to a lot of the people who are really negative about the game and very dismissive and kind of nasty towards people who like the game or whatever. In that the lack of creativity from the community and what they want from this game, I think is really bad for the game and the community and stuff like that. You know, they could ask, like if they could put out like a thing and say, hey, you know, what kind of modes would you guys like in the Division? And I can guarantee you that 90% of the responses would be Division 1 Dark Zone, Underground, Survival. And I think it's cool to want those things back. But I can't think of the last time I saw someone have an original idea. Have an idea of like, oh yeah, let's have a mode where a bunch of us go in and do that, and then we have to go do this, and then it comes down to this final sequence, and that would be so awesome. That doesn't happen. It's literally every time survival, underground, last stand, resistance, bring back Division 1 DZ. It's just the same thing over and over and over and over again. The one thing that we got back was skirmish, and no one plays it. So like to me it's similar to like kind of the moaning about instances where the game reps, and this is kind of related, kind of not, but you know, there's been a lot of, I think, really interesting feedback from some people about how at some point that different representatives from the game have told people to go play other games. And the reason that it annoys me that kind of gets nitpicked and talked about by certain people is that, like, without context, that's obviously not a great thing to say, right? But with context, in the few times I've seen that kind of phrase brought up or said, I've never seen it be to someone who was being like reasonable. I've never seen someone be like, hey guys, I really love this game, but it'd be great if you would do this and that and the other, or else, and then I'd really enjoy this game more. And then Julian's like, fuck you, go play another game. That's not what it is. It's people being like, this game is dead, you guys suck, you guys ruined, just make Division 1 again. And then they're like, well, Division 1's still there, go play it. Or, you know, other examples like that. And I guess my issue is that when it comes to replying to these kind of people, is that I think that there's three ways you can reply to them. You can say nothing, or just to reply to the community in general. You can say nothing. The problem is that with that is that it'll be talked about as them ignoring the community, giving up, you know, the game's on, you know, the back burner, you know, it's on neutral, rolling down the hill. The second thing they can do is tell people that stuff is coming, but they can't tell them what it is because that's how they roll. This will be met with, and has been met with, people saying it's too late, game is dead, you know, give us details, even though they're not at liberty to do that. And then the third option, which isn't ideal, but is to tell people to go play other things. Play Division 1, go play some Outer Worlds, go play Destiny, go play Warframe, go play Borderlands, go play Breakpoint. Go play something if this game isn't doing it for you. But then that's being seen as dismissive and lazy and bad communication. So to me, it's like a damned if they do and damned if they don't situation, where no matter how they respond, whether it's with silence if they have no real updates, whether it's with vague assurances, which people don't like or take seriously, or whether it's just with maybe some frustrated clapbacks, you know, which people feel is dismissive. What do you want to do? Now, I just said in the previous segment that we need episode 3 teasers now, and I still stand by that. I think that would be a great way to get people hyped, to get people excited, and I think they should do that. But I really think that this conversation that goes on about, you know, either complaining about them, telling people to go play other games, even though that really isn't their typical response, or whether it's about just always asking for the same thing, just incessantly, and having no creativity with the ideas, or just no thought behind what you're asking for, it just doesn't help. At the end of the day, for me, is that people just need to realize, like, in these situations, the way information is released about games by Ubisoft, for the most part, when it's done the way they want it to be done, is very purposeful. Amper is never going to break news on the Friday stream, especially if it's not Terry, because Terry's like a kid with candy who's not allowed to give the candy to anyone, but he really wants to. You know, he might drop a little wink, wink, hint, hint here and there, but Amper is never going to break news. He'll dance around confirmations. He'll do what he's got to do. He'll try to. The problem is that these guys are in a situation where he may know what's coming. I'm sure he does. I have no doubt in my mind. Amper knows what's coming for episode 3, for year 2. I mean, I'm sure he's in the loop, but he's also given specific instructions about what he's allowed to say and isn't. And this goes for all the CMs. This goes for everyone in the darn company, probably, except some devs who probably drop stuff they aren't supposed to here and there. But that's a different story. But the thing is, they're doing their job. And just because you ask doesn't mean you're privileged to information. And in drama, like what I've seen drummed up around this and repeatedly other times before, is exactly what makes these companies be less transparent, not do these streams, not show their faces, because nothing good comes of it, because people expect things that they shouldn't. People convince themselves that things are coming that no one ever said were coming, and they end up just being a net negative. And why would they keep putting themselves out there? So I've said before 100 times, but just be aware of who the people are who drum these things up and who get this stuff all riled up and going. If the people starting this drama and these rumors and so on and so forth are the same ones who are constantly harassing devs, being assholes to everyone who interacts with them, and simply have a history of being shady, just cite your sources, mind your sources, and don't latch on to things just because they go along with what you already want or think or believe. So there's that. Rant 1 over. This actually came from a question from Mitch, I believe. It kind of brought up this topic, and I said I would talk about it. So Mitch, thank you very much for bringing this up. It was something I was going to talk about anyways, but definitely got inspired by our kind of back and forth in a really good way. I really enjoyed that little back and forth, and I appreciate it. You know what else I appreciate? I appreciate y'all listen to a 30-second mid-roll, which is going to hit right now. Okay, so some other gaming topics and some Division chatter. This is probably going to be a really triggering podcast. And that's okay. Maybe I'll get the people going. We'll get those listens pop back up. Maybe someone will lie about what I said again. We'll have to get real crazy with it. The first topic I want to talk about is Call of Duty Modern Warfare and kind of the post-mortem feel of it. So I talked about it last week, kind of gave my review. Beat the story. I actually want to play the story again one day. I want to wait a little while though. The Spec Ops mode kind of sucked. I tried to play it and did not enjoy it at all. So I'm good. Maybe they'll improve it. Maybe there's more coming to it. I don't know. But the multiplayer has really been my highlight. I've really been enjoying it. I will say that there's definitely some balancing issues have come up. Shotguns are crazy frustrating. There's just so many situations where the thing in a game like Call of Duty is you feel like you want a chance to outmaneuver your opponent or to outplay them. I think that's the basic idea behind PvP in every game. I've talked about it a lot with Division and how I just don't think Division's ever really provided that, even though people disagree, which is fine. And currently in Modern Warfare, there's definitely an issue with, at least in my opinion, shotguns. There's a situation where, and I think rightfully so, if you're close up, has a scatter shot, very close ranges, shotgun should absolutely dominate. That's fine, whatever. But then you're getting to a point where there's some unbalance where, you're talking about medium ranges, medium range, even medium plus ranges, where you can still get one tap by a shotgun. Which, so the problem is that I understand from a realism point of view, and I've shotguns my entire life. I understand that buckshot would probably be able to take a person down at a pretty effective range, but it's not real life. Call of Duty is not a real game. It is not real life. It is not a simulator. It is a arcadey, fun shooter that has some nice gunplay and needs the different weapon classes to have their own strengths and weaknesses. And right now, the shotguns reach out way too far. I would say that's the biggest issue I have. I've definitely caught myself getting a little frustrated here and there with people who are camping. That's always just been kind of a Call of Duty staple, though. And if you're not going to get over that with Call of Duty, then Call of Duty is just probably not for you. I find myself to be really effective without, and I'm definitely a roamer. Amper actually on his private channel did a really good video kind of talking about like, hey, especially for newer players who are getting the hang of the game, pick like a fourth of the map. Pick like a chunk of the map and just roam it, control it, lock down a quarter of the map, or a fifth of the map, or whatever, and control it, and know every nook and cranny, know every angle, know every place a grenade drop in, put down a claymore, do what you gotta do. And that's definitely where I've kind of gotten, and I'm really enjoying it. There's definitely some honeymoon's over kind of moments where there's some stuff that needs to be fixed up and worked on. But if you're still on the fence about getting it, I highly suggest it. Again, I really enjoyed the single player. It was definitely a Call of Duty story, but not in a bad way. And I thought it was a lot of fun. And in the multiplayer, if it's your style, I think it's great. I really enjoy the progression and picking a weapon or picking a style of play, and just upgrading things towards that and trying to really go towards it. They have some challenges now where you can actively work towards certain rewards and stuff like that. They can be a little frustrating because they involve doing things like getting 60 kills with pistols, which, due to the shotgun issue, is really hard right now, because you can pump 3 or 4 shots into someone with some of the pistols, and then they can spin around with the shotgun and murder you. So that's a bit frustrating, but go for those headshots, be better than I. But definitely buy it if you're interested. I highly suggest it. But if you do, let me know what you thought. If I wasted your $60, let me know why. I'm curious. The next game that's coming soon is Star Wars Fallen Order. I'm really excited for this game. I've had kind of a run lately of playing Outer Worlds, single player, playing through the whole story. Call of Duty, playing through the whole story. I believe those are the first 2 games I've played through an actual story that ends. And years. It's been a while, at least. I meant to play Hellblade. I did play the first Tomb Raider reboot, I think last year. I've meant to play the second and third one. I've heard they're good, but maybe not quite as good. But I am still interested in finishing those. But Star Wars has definitely given me that feel of like, oh, cool. Here's gonna be another really cool story to play through, and kind of this world that I enjoy. I love Star Wars. I'm one of the evil people who actually likes the last couple of movies, even though what episode 8 was kind of meh. I really liked episode 7, and I'm even one of the evil people who likes episode 3 as well. Not 1 and 2 though; they're garbage. So I'm super pumped. They're describing it as kind of a Dark Soulsy type of game, but not quite that intense. But definitely that kind of idea, almost mixed with like a Titanfall and kind of with the movement and stuff like that. But then they're kind of talking about it. And I don't know. It just seems like it's a mix of a lot of games, and it's something I'm really excited. And I really feel like for the most part they haven't really spoiled much about it. I feel like if I pick it up and play it, I'm not going to really know what I'm getting into. Besides that, I believe it takes place between episode 3 and 4. So I believe that you're playing as one of the survivors of Order 66, and you're kind of trying to put pieces together and help the rebellion. So I'm excited for it. I'm really curious to hear what you think. I would like to know, if you're going to buy this, why? If you're not going to, why? And we can kind of talk about that. Okay, so the second rant of the day is going to go to Division 1, and talking about whether or not we see Survival Underground and Division 1 in general as maybe better than it really was. And this can be a fairly short conversation. I just this is a stance I feel like I kind of drop little opinions on every now and then, and this is a good time to drop just a very clear, like, here's kind of how I stand, and I'm curious to how you feel about it. But so humans have this interesting thing. So I'm not going to pretend like I'm a doctor, that I'm super highly educated and stuff like that. I do have a bachelor's degree in psychology. I have about 8 years of experience in my field. I mostly deal with people with intellectual disabilities, but I still do try to keep up on research, and there was definitely research in high school, I guess, but especially college, that I really enjoyed. And one of the things that always stuck with me was that there's kind of this natural way that the human mind works, and that our memories work specifically. And humans have this weird thing where we're really good at remembering dangerous experiences, to make sure we don't get in those situations again. We're very good with that for the most part, unless we get too traumatized by something, and then that leads to things like PTSD. But that's a whole different talk. Another interesting thing is humans have kind of a tendency to remember the good of situations and forget the bad. I believe, from what I remember, it has a lot to do with kind of protecting our self-esteem and trying to prevent some depression and things like that. But there's this thing that humans do, and this is even from my own personal experience. I can identify this in myself, and I've seen it with other people, and I've seen it specifically with the Division community and the way it seems to remember Division 1. A lot of the complaints about Division 2 are Division 1 based, and it's a lot of, the Division 1 DZ was better. And there's definitely some objective ways that I think people can say it was better. It was a bigger server, it was a bigger area. I don't think you can say there was more to do, but let's say there was a bigger map, there were more people, and subjectively some people had more fun in it. They thought had a better loop. I think that comes down to opinion, but I see it a lot. You can say the same thing about the game in general. Division 1 was better because it had survival and underground and last stand and resistance, and Division 2 doesn't have those things. That's a fact. That is true. But what I kind of mentioned before, and what I still think, and I stand by myself, this is obviously an opinion, but I think if you take away those things, if you purely talk about the base mechanics of the two games, and you look at what's available, even in the sense of what was available to the games at the same time period, we're 8-9 months since the Division released. We not even that. I guess it was in March, and so it's been 7 months, I guess, or almost 8. And I still hold, and what you can agree with me or not, feel free to let me know, that I believe that Division 2 is a better game than Division 1 ever was. And I'm not just saying like at release, 8 months in. I understand, I totally get why people look at Division 1 and they see Underground, they see Survival, or whatever they liked about Division 1 and say, look, I really like that, so Division 1's better. But what I think is going to happen is I think we're going to find that at the end of year 2 of Division 2, more than likely, maybe at the end of year 1, we'll see how episode 3 goes. I really believe most people who are not being emotional, not being overly nostalgic, are going to be able to say like, man, I really like Division 1, and there's some things I still like more, the atmosphere, the city, whatever, because I can agree with some of those things. But I think most people who are being reasonable are going to be like, yeah, Division 2 is definitely better. It was definitely a step up. Now, I totally understand a lot of the issues people have with the most common thing I see is, well, they obviously didn't learn from Division 1. Look at all these problems in Division 2. And one thing I've been saying since before Division 2 came out is that Division 2 is a new game. It is not Division 1 with some new stuff. It's interesting because before Division 2 came out, a lot of people were prophesizing that Division 2 was just going to be Division 1.5. I saw that there were people who were ramping up, excited to start ripping on Division 2 the way that people ripped on Destiny 2. And being like, yeah, it's the same game, and they took steps back, and they took away content that they're just going to reintroduce, and blah, blah, blah. And when Division 2 released, I think most people would say that wasn't the case. It wasn't Division 1.5. It was a Division 2. But since then, I think we found that there's some people who I think would have complained about Division 1.5 who are now asking for a Division 1.5. Where the initial complaints looked like they were heading towards they just gave us the same game with more stuff. Now there's a lot of people asking for Division 1 with more stuff. Now there's a lot of reasons why that wasn't realistic. There's stuff that I don't think I can talk about. But even from the things that we can talk about, I mean, player movement had to be updated significantly. I know people don't like the new animations. I know people don't like this and that and the other, but it had to change. I mean, people were straight exploiting the game in Division 1, and it just never got changed. And I suspect it's because it probably couldn't get changed, that they had to basically redo the movement, the player models, the animations, and all that. There's entire, some of the most popular people that were in this game in Division 1, the creators and stuff like that, like lived off of that. There was, whether it was exploiting the movement system and borderline cheating, maybe a big allegation, but I feel like most reasonable people would see where I'm coming from. To abusing overpowered gear sets and things that people kind of conveniently seem to forget. And those things had to change. They couldn't just release Division 1.5, even though that seems to be what some people want. Now there's people asking for instant heals to be back, who want them to make the lightweight M4 and the LVOAC automatic again, even though they shouldn't be. The real guns aren't. But it's just because they want that nostalgia smack. They want it back. They're itching for it to feel like the first game again. But what I appreciate is that I don't think they're going to do that. And by not doing that, they're doing other things, like a lot of the changes we saw in Title Update 6. And what I found, surprisingly, is after playing a decent amount of Title Update 6, I kind of felt like I was playing Division 1 again, in the sense of how the loot was dropping and stuff like that. And I hope that for some people, they felt the same, and that it kind of scratched that itch a bit. It obviously didn't for everyone. I'm still seeing people, like I said before, survival, underground. And I don't blame those people for that. But I still, something that just has been recurring ever since Division 2 came out is I really think a lot of people just have a weird nostalgia for Division 1. And what's so weird about it is that it's there. It's right there. You can go play it. Anyone can go play Division 1 today and be like, oh yeah, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Forgot about this. I forgot that there's 3 viable gear sets in any competitive activity. I forgot that DZ's a freaking shit show of checkpoint campers and, I forgot that it's the same 9 missions that were released in 2016. I forgot this and that and the other. That's obviously my opinion. I know, and if people want to disagree with me, I'm happy to hear you out. But I really just think that there's this kind of, I think nostalgia goggles have really gotten a lot of people. And it kind of what I mentioned before is, I hope that at some point Division 2 gets to a place where people can appreciate Division 1 for what it was, and then appreciate Division 2 for what it is. And hope to foster that and see what it becomes, rather than just hoping for it to become Division 1 again. Because I'm just going to say it's not going to happen. And people who are sticking around hoping it does are probably going to be disappointed. I could be wrong. I don't really know what the point of that rant was. Long story short, I really don't think Division 1 was as perfect as a lot of people seem to think it was. I promise that I remember plenty of conversations happening between 1.8.3 and Division 2 coming out, making it very clear that Division 1 was not perfect, even though it seems like some of those conversations have faded. Oh, sorry, that's gross. But I really think that, I really hope that at some point, sooner than later, people are able to just appreciate them both for what they are and for what they aren't. Okay, so we got a few listener questions here. The first one was from YouTube, from Federation Space, who said, just wondering if you think in episode 3 that we will go after the President of the United States and Aaron Keener at the same time, or separately Aaron Keener in episode 3 and then the President in year 2. What I would guess is that episode 3 is going to be very focused on Aaron Keener. I don't really expect any Black Tusk influence. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe we see Black Tusk there, because if you read the book and if you read the comic, you'll know that the Black Tusk isn't just in DC. They're attacking strategic points all over the east part of the country, the east side, the east of the Mississippi, basically. Sorry if that's a spoiler, but you should have read it by now. And if you haven't, it is worth going and reading, especially the book. The comic was a little, it was cool, but the book is really good and is definitely worth reading, at least in my opinion. It definitely gives a lot of information between Division 2 and 1, or Division 1 and 2, and kind of gives you an idea of what's happening outside of NYC and DC. And then I suspect that we'll continue. I don't think we're necessarily going after the president that much. I think what we found in the mission so far is that the quote unquote president who got away at Camp White Oak is just kind of a pawn, in that there's people above him who are kind of directing everything. And so I suspect that year 2 is going to be a lot about figuring out who they are, and maybe even trying to put an end to their influence. So I suspect they'll be separate. I really think episode 3 is going to be like kind of this, maybe a little bit of what I was just complaining about, but kind of like a nostalgia punch, sending us back to where we came, and maybe having a little bit of that nostalgia satisfied, and hopefully some really, really, really cool stuff to do. But we'll have to wait and see. Now on Twitter, Silence Falls said, what is some ideal in-game content that would help long-term survival of the game, but also not repeat what other MMO style of games do? So that's what I was just talking about, right? And here's going to be my hypocritical moment of the year. I have no idea. Something I've tried to make really clear in PvP conversations that come up is that it's always, look at Bond's stats. He doesn't play DZ. He doesn't, which is somewhat correct. I mean, I've played it more than people think, but I get it. That's fine. The whole point of my input with especially PvP, but in this game in general, has always been that I'm a big shooter fan. I've been playing shooters since I was a little kid. I play them a ton when I was in high school and college, and since then I've been really into it. I have a lot of experience with PvP, but just playing these games in general. What I don't have a lot of experience with, and I basically have zero experience with, is MMOs. I have a little bit of RPG experience, but straight up, I would say my RPG experience has been sports games, which, if you don't think they're RPGs, I dare you to dive into Madden or FIFA, like the coaching modes, and tell me that's not an RPG. You can kiss my butt if you disagree. But the Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, Fallout 4. I liked Fallout 4. I'm a crazy person, and so I really don't know. Silence. I really don't, and that's why I don't try to throw stuff out there. Because I really don't know. I don't know what kind of in-game content. Obviously, having raids in Division 2 is a big deal. Unfortunately, this most recent one got delayed, but that kind of is what it is. The raid is definitely in-game content. But for other stuff, I have no idea. But what's so frustrating to me is that it doesn't seem like anyone else really knows either. And in lieu of having any ideas, it's always just survival, underground. So anyone who's listening to this, I'm asking you for your ideas. What are some in-game activities that could keep you coming back, that are not underground, that are not survival, and that aren't just things ripped from Destiny or whatever? I'm curious. I'm asking the question back. But thank you very much, Silence, for that question. Hassan had kind of a series of questions here. Calm and collected, what can possibly trigger you? I think people have found that lying about things I say or opinions I have triggers me pretty hard. I think people think that calling me a white knight and stuff triggers me. It happens every here and there. I've kind of owned that at this point. I'm not going to be insulted by people saying I'm nice. I'm not an asshole, and I don't base my entire persona on the internets around being a dick to everybody. Only the people who deserve it. So yeah, it's probably just people being dishonest. And if I notice that I think people are being sensational and maybe don't 100% stand behind what they're saying, and that they just say things to get people riled up. But I would put getting subtweeted on there, getting subtweeted like on Twitter and stuff. But I subtweet like a motherfucker. So that probably shouldn't be something I should say triggers me, because I'm as guilty as anybody. I really try to pull back on it, but every now and then you just gotta throw out a spicy tweet. Next question from Hassan: where do you see Baby Diesel in the next few years? An agent or a space ninja? We'll see, man. Bay Diesel is not a gamer at all, and I'm curious to whether or not Baby Diesel will see me playing games and want to participate, or if she'll see her mom not playing them and just think I'm a nerd. I have a feeling that, especially for people her age, doing things like playing mobile games and stuff like that will be more popular. So if there's a mobile Division game one day, I'll push her real hard on it. So hopefully an agent. You say soccer or football? Well, soccer was the original name of the sport, and then the British people got all mad that the Americans were using it and changed it to football. So soccer, because it's the correct one. Suck it. Boom. And then favorite ice cream. Ah, man, that's so tough. Mint chocolate chip. It's between that and chocolate chip cookie dough, but I'm gonna go with mint chocolate chip. That's my stuff right there. Thank you for those questions, Hassan. And then Infinite says, this is on Twitter as well. Have you gotten a full 8 hours of sleep since Baby Diesel joined the chat? If not, when do you anticipate you will? I think I've talked about it a little bit, but not too much, like on Twitter and stuff. But let's see, Baby Diesel turned 12 weeks old this week and has been sleeping in her own room. I guess that means for 7 weeks now, and has been sleeping through the night that whole time. Every now and then, maybe like once every other week, she'll wake up in the middle of the night and want like literally just like a sip of food, and then she falls right back asleep. It's actually been kind of frustrating for Bay Diesel because she has to pump. Anyone who's married or has kids knows what I'm talking about. And it would actually be easier if Baby Diesel wanted to eat in the middle of the night, but doesn't. She sleeps, she'll sleep 10, 11, 12 hours if we let her. It's she'll stir a little bit, but we've actually honestly had no problem sleeping through the night, and for almost 2 months now. Knock on wood, I don't want to jinx myself, but this baby has been easy. And that's probably infuriating to anyone who had a baby with like colic or who had a lot of issues. But you know, without jinxing myself, Baby Diesel's been freaking perfect. She gets pissed when she's wet and when she's hungry. Otherwise, she's like the coolest baby on earth. So I anticipate getting that kind of sleep for now. You know, here in a month or two, she's going to start teething, and we'll see how that goes. I anticipate that maybe some of this excitement we've had for the last month, 2 months, may come back to bite us a bit. But yeah, Baby Diesel's been amazing. Thank you everyone for the questions. Feel free to ask. I always open up on Twitter, Discord, YouTube, Patreon, all those places for questions. So if you see it, you know, feel free to ask. Obviously, I prefer questions about Division 2. This week I opened it up to kind of ask me anything, and honestly, you know, whatever. I'm happy to answer any questions anytime. I mean, if you ask something stupid, I'm just going to ignore you. But otherwise, I'm always happy to answer. Okay, so some content updates. So last week was super crazy because we had Bay Diesel was gone for an overnight trip with her students. We had death in the family, so we had those arrangements, and then funeral, and someone in our family brought a sick child to the funeral, and now a very large number of the people who are at the funeral all have neurovirus and various other flu and cold issues. So if you've been listening to this, you can probably tell, and my ranting has been a little more crazy than normal, and I apologize if I cussed a few more times than normal if you listen to this out loud, but I'm a little out of it. Yeah, this week and last week have just been kind of a disaster. That said, Baby Diesel's perfectly fine, knock on wood, and it seems like so far at least she's escaped anything too bad. So that also, what that means is that I've continued to be fairly inconsistent with content. I'm really sorry for that. That's not what I want, but it just kind of is what it is right now, and hopefully we can get going eventually. I have started typing up some rough scripts on new Intel Insight videos on the audio recording collectibles in Division 2. I have a stream schedule I really think is realistic, but we just need a week to be normal again, and hopefully I can go through with it. We'll shoot for next week, I promise. And if anyone has any requests for content, if anyone feels like there's like something that they'd really like to hear someone talk about or point out or kind of review, let me know. Obviously Division 2 base is what I prefer. I'm happy to compare other games to Division 2. I'm happy to to do anything. I'm kind of busy, a little idea starved when it comes to that sort of stuff, so feel free to suggest. Okay, so let's wrap things up here before I pass out. If you want to support the podcast or any of my other content, please check out my Patreon at patreon.com/theechocast. If you are on iTunes, please rate the podcast and leave a review. If you're on any podcast platform that lets you review, please do so and give me 5 stars or whatever. I am Bon Diesel on Twitch, where I try to stream 3 or 4 times a week. I am also Bon Diesel on Twitter, where you can catch my thoughts, state of the game live tweets, and the occasional foot in my own mouth. If you would like some cool The EchoCast or Bon Diesel merch, please check out designbyhumans.com/shop/Bon Diesel, or just go to their website and search for Bon Diesel. I've got a bunch of cool stuff on there. That's all I have. So until next time.